On the edge of the wild, we won't betray. Every lap, every turn, it's do or die. With the spirit of a warrior as we reach for the sky. We're racing through the fire, burning bright. With the grit of the brave, we fight the night. No chains can hold us, no fear can break. We're GLR for glory's sake. But we wear them proud like a second skin. For the fallen and the ones who rise. In the name of freedom we ride the skies. We got the scars to show where we've been. But we wear them proud like a second skin. But we wear them proud to show where we've been. But we wear them proud, the glory's sake. We're the heart of the storm where we've been. But we wear them proud like a second skin. For the fallen and the ones who rise. In the name of freedom we ride the skies. We're racing through the fire, burning bright. With the grit of the brave, we fight the night. No chains can hold us, no fear can break. We're GLR for glory's sake. Yeah, for glory's sake. In the heart of the storm, we find our way. On the edge of the wild, we won't betray. Every life that we turn to do or die. With the spirit of warriors, the game. In the heart of the storm, we found our way. On the edge of the way, on the edge of the wild, we won't betray. In the heart of the storm, we find our way. On the edge of the wild, we won't betray. Every lap, every turn, it's do or die. With the spirit of a warrior as we reach for the sky. We're racing through the fire, burning bright. With the grit of the brave, we fight the night. No chains can hold us, no fear can break. We're GLR for glory's sake. We're GLR for glory's sake. We're GLR for glory's sake. We're the outlaws on the asphalt, running wild, we'll never fall. In the shadows where the strong survive, GoatLocker Racing, we come alive. We're brothers and sisters bound by the code. In the heat of the battle, we lighten the load. From the dirt to the track, we stand our ground. With a roar like thunder, we shake the town. We're racing through the fire, burning bright. With the grit of the brave, we fight the night. No chains can hold us, no fear can break. We're GLR for glory's sake. We've got the scars to show where we've been. But we wear them proud like a second skin. For the fallen and the ones who rise. In the name of freedom we ride the skies. From the first green flag to the final lap, we push the limits, no turning back. With the wind at our backs and the sun in our eyes, GoatLocker Racing, we'll claim the prize. We're racing through the fire, burning bright. With the grit of the brave, we fight the night. No chains can hold us, no fear can break. We're GLR for glory's sake. Our way. On the edge of the wild, we won't betray. Every lap, every turn, it's do or die. With the spirit of a warrior as we reach for the sky. We're racing through the fire, burning bright. With the grit of the brave, we fight the night. No chains can hold us, no fear can break. We're GLR for glory's sake. But we wear them proud like a second skin. For the fallen and the ones who rise. In the name of freedom we ride the skies. So we got the scars to show where we've been. But we wear them proud like a second skin. But we wear them proud to show where we've been. But we wear them proud, the glory's sake. We're the heart of the storm where we've been. But we wear them proud like a second skin. For the fallen and the ones who rise. In the name of freedom we ride the skies. We're racing through the fire, burning bright. With the grit of the brave, we fight the night. No chains can hold us, no fear can break. We're GLR for glory's sake. Yeah, for glory's sake. In the heart of the storm, we find our way. On the edge of the wild, we won't betray. Every life that we turn to do or die. With the spirit of warriors, the game. In the heart of the storm, we found our way. On the edge of the way, on the edge of the wild, we won't.
Birds flying high. sky, you know how I feel. Breeze drifting on by, you know how I feel. It's a new dawn, it's a new day, it's a new life. Fish in the sea, you know how I feel. River running free, you know how I feel. Blossom on the tree, you know how I feel. It's a new dawn, it's a new day, it's a new life.
Well, hello and good evening, everybody. Welcome back to Maconi Entertainment, and welcome back to tonight's coverage of GoatLocker Racing's Wednesday night Cruisin Classics series. This is round number 8 of the season, coming to you tonight from Indianapolis Motor Speedway. This broadcast is of course being brought to you tonight exclusively on Maconi Entertainment, here to bring all of the action to life. My name is Ryan Marks. Joining me in the commentary booth is Jeremy Briggs, and in the virtual production hall we have Marty Zakala. And now, Jeremy, heading into the first race here at this wonderful track, one of the most beautiful motorsports edifices here in the world of motorsports, the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, one of the most historic tracks in the world. I think it's going to be a fun race. It was nice to see the NASCAR cars running back at the Yard of Bricks, running on the true configuration this season in real life, and really happy to have this racing here on iRacing at this wonderful track.
Yes, we are, Ron. Good evening. Glad to be here alongside of you tonight. Again, this 2.5 mile, very historic track, 4 turns. As you can tell, we got different turns all the way around. Definitely really flat. Going to be a lot of drafting dependencies going down these long straightaways. We'll see if they get strung out or if they continue to draft as the drivers look like they are just finishing up qualifying. I am excited to be here.
It's been a brilliant season thus far, and as we slowly roll into the end of the regular season, we've been talking about the points a lot more. You can see those standings right now. Lucas Lyons, JJ Moore, Ryan Pendleton, Cody McIlwain, Jesse Whittington, and Logan Sturgeon all locked into this season's playoffs for Season 6 of the Wednesday Night Cruisin Classics Next Gen Series. But you got Michael Kostek, you got Cunningham there in P8, Jesse Nakula in 9th, Jay Collins in 10th, Patrick Drapick in P11, and rounding out your top 12 as it stands at the moment. The last of the cars still in the playoffs. It is a incredibly tense fight for that final playoff point. Currently, Timothy Stubblefield is the last car in the playoffs as it stands at the moment. Here's the starting grid for this race. JJ Moore going to be starting from the pole. Jesse Whittington going to join him on the front row. Zach Engel starting in 3rd. Logan Sturgeon in 4th. Jesse Nakula going to be starting this race in 5th. Cody McIlwain going to start alongside him on that 3rd row. Patrick Drapick and Kadorian Davis starting P7 and P8 respectively. JT Collins and Jason S. Taylor going to round out your top 10. Then we have James Kaufman in P11, Mike Kostek starting this race in 12th. And looking through the rest of the drivers that we have inside the top 20, we have Timothy Wilms, Blake Edel, Ryan Pendleton, Bobby Germain, Daniel D. Cunningham starting this race in 17th, Jacob Ellingson in P18, Lucas Lyons, and Tyler Justice making up row 10.
Rounding out our last few rows here, you got Charles L. Stevens there in 21st, James Goshen in 22nd, Joe Hobbs there in 23rd, Jacob Linke in 24th, Sam McKilligan there in 25th, Timothy Stubblefield there in 26th. I believe Stubblefield is right there on that playoff bubble. He's going to have some time to make up. He's the last driver to make time tonight, as you got the last few drivers there behind him: George Jewell, Doug Ellingson, Tanner Bethia, and Chris Sawyer rounding out our field.
Yeah, so a little bit of a smaller field for this race, but nevertheless, really happy to get things up and rolling from this race at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. We've got 60 laps of racing action to look forward to, but before we grab the green, we should probably talk about the driver who grabbed the pole position for this race, that being the number 54 of JJ Moore, because in grabbing that pole, he's also picked up the Jam Printing and Promotions Pole Award. Based out of Plainfield, Indiana, Jam Printing and Promotions are local or veteran certified, and when they do well, they can do good for your community too. Since forming in 2013, Jam has contributed to printing and promotional sponsorships to more than 60 local nonprofits, with a primary focus on organizations that assist veterans, women, and children. They've been with GoatLocker Racing since the very beginning. They provide GLR with all the promotional items, including shirts, hats, decals, dog tags, you name it. Jam is GLR's go-to promotional company. We would like to thank Jam Printing and Promotions for being the sponsor of the Jam Pole Award and also being a partner of GoatLocker Racing. But Jeremy, excited to get things up and rolling from this race, but as much as this racetrack may be cool, the weather conditions are anything but.
Yes, sir, absolutely. Conditions, we got 111 track temperature with the 30-mile-an-hour winds of gusting from the north to the south. 60 laps is going to be the distance here tonight. No fast repairs, 3 tire changes, and we're looking at the fuel window being 30 to 40 laps. Well, we believe 40 laps being the max. I'm excited to go racing here. We're going to thank Maconi Setup Shop for the race analysis.
Yeah, thank Maconi Setup Shop, Maconi Entertainment for, of course, bringing this broadcast to life. All the drivers out there on the racetrack ready to step on that gas and get this race underway. You got 60 laps to try and get it done here at Indianapolis Motor Speedway, one of the most historic circuits in the world. First hosted a hot air balloon race all the way back in 1909, but here at the NASCAR Next Gen cars, ready to bring the thunder at the Yard of Bricks, and with some smoke coming up in the back of the pack, the green flag's down, the drivers are on their way, looking like a pretty even kill start for both of our front row sitters, but JJ Moore on that inside line in the number 54 car going to be leading them off into turn number 1. That's a pretty convincing start from him, but farther in the back, meanwhile, got a whole lot of drivers going side by side.
As we saw there, a lot of drama at the beginning of the start, but looks like everybody is still going straight and going, so hopefully those drivers have not a lot of damage. We did see quite a bit of smoke, so we'll have to see how that plays out. Right now, I believe Clean Air is going to be king as JJ Moore is out front. As we know in real life, these cars are very aero dependent, and then when you get behind a car in front of you, it can take that air off of you, as these drivers are doing a great job side by side there as you look at Maconi Ilwain right there in the number 6. Oh, one getting loose there in the pit. Wow, great save.
Beautiful save. I'm not sure who that was. Mega sideways, saw a little bit of wall contact a little bit farther in the back. That was a huge moment just a couple of moments ago, and the driver that had that such a close call, big crash heading through turn number 1. You can see multiple cars involved. That's the 86 involved in that, the 85 as well. James Goshen in the 85. All the cars taken out in that incident. Timothy Wilms being the other one. But that was a big amount of drama heading down into turn number 1. A pretty big amount of contact for Wilms in the number 86 car, careening his way into that outside safer barrier. You can see the damage on the front end of that race car. That car is ready for the junkyard. So it looks like a car being taken out of this race, that being a Camry. Gotta take a look at a replay to see what went wrong here for Wilms. And it was contact with the number 48 of Lucas Lyons and a big hit into the outside wall.
Looks like maybe incidental contact there by Loynes, I believe would be the case there with the 86. With the 85, nowheres to go as we take another quick look at the replay. It looks like the 48 just up and into him there, and unfortunately the 85 was just an innocent bystander here early on. This might do it for these drivers here tonight.
And one of the drivers involved in that was James Goshen, the driver of the number 85 car. Gotta say, the driver that we saw mega sideways coming out of turn number 4 was James Kaufman. But taking a look at another angle of this time riding on board with Wilms, and you can see the back end of the car picking up in the air as a result of that contact. That was a huge whack into that outside safer barrier. That's going to take him out of that race. That car is destroyed. Gotta take a look at another angle of this one with James Goshen in the 85. You can see him trying to woe it up before he hits the inside tire barrier in that small little section added back in the mid-2000s. There you can see the absolutely destroyed remains of the number 86 car of Timothy Wilms, trying to get that car into the pit stall, which is a very hard ask here, considering the amount of damage he has on that race car. But before we had that incident, Jeremy, the racing was so intense, and we had so many close calls before that as well.
Extremely dramatic from 10th place on, as we got drivers looking like, nope, they're going to stay out. As it was like we said, 10th place on was very dramatic. Unfortunately, it looks like the 85 and the 86 got meatball flags. Looks like the 86 was able to clear that up. We'll have to see how he drives for the rest of this evening. Might have had a... Nope, looks like he's still got some damage there, so no fast repair, obviously. But yeah, a lot of drama here early on for a lot of these drivers. Looks like quite a few of the drivers from the back either getting damage fixed or maybe some type of fuel strategy. Top it off here, and maybe you can have a quicker pit throughout the race. But looking at the 33 there, looks like some pretty hefty nose damage.
And you can see more drivers coming down pit lane. It was a pretty hectic start, it must be said. Some drivers making contact already with the offset and the Maconi setup shop notes that we had coming into this race. They won't be able to make it to the checkered flag with this very early stop, so it must be for some sort of damage. That or there's just some major difficulties with their strategy, maybe running the qualifying fuel possibly. We'll just have to wait and see how those drivers shake out, but either way, even though it's been a nightmare start for some of the drivers a little bit farther in the back, it was a dream start for JJ Moore, who is still at the front of this field. Jesse Whittington in second. And looking through the field, not a whole lot of movers and shakers, mainly down to the fact that we had pretty much no time to really settle into a groove and kick our feet back and start to relax from this broadcast. But looking a little bit farther behind, Daniel Cunningham in the number 91 car managed to make up 4 spots at the very beginning of this race. Jake Ellingson also made up a few spots as well, along with Charles Stevens Jr. So some drivers already making some inroads, but the driver who's made up the most amount of spots at the moment is Doug Ellingson in the number 58 car. And it goes back to the point that we mentioned before the start of this race, talking about that playoff picture and the drivers trying to contend for that spot. Cunningham enters this race 8th at the moment, 16 points in front of that cut line, which is not a significant margin at all. So he's hoping to try and have a good race here, along with Timothy Stubblefield, who entered this race as a final car in the playoffs. 12th seed at the moment, 2 points in front of Blake Edel, the driver of the number 18 car, is currently the first car out. Trying to see where Edel is at this point in time. He's currently running in 17th, so a little bit farther up the road compared to Stubblefield, who's running in 24th at the moment. But even in the early stages of a race like this, where you got so much challenge, just trying to keep your car clean can play a huge role in deciding whether or not you're going to make those playoffs.
As we've seen early on, a lot can happen, and you don't want to have your playoffs hopes get tarnished here in just this race. Not even 10 laps in. I'm sure these drivers are now on the edge of their seats with all this drama happening early on. They want to make sure they keep their playoffs hopes on the horizon. We'll have to see how it plays out, as we'll have quite a few laps. Looks like we're going to have 55 laps to go when we go green.
Yeah, still a whole lot of time left for these drivers to try and get some moves done, and a whole lot of action left to come from tonight's action from the Wednesday night Cruisin Classics Next Gen Series. And I gotta say, we've talked about them a lot throughout this season. However, we'll bring it up again, one of the fantastic partners that we have here from this series, and some people that are actually watching this broadcast right now at Nasty's Restaurant and Bar. On March 21st, 2012, Nasty's opened its doors in Hilliard, Ohio. From the get-go, they aim to embody the energy and passion of their sons, Nathan and John, and the passion that they poured into their dreams. Nathan's commitment to hospitality ensured that every guest received exceptional food and service. We would like to thank Nancy's Restaurant and Bar for being one of the co-sponsors of the GoatLocker Racing Wednesday Night Next Gen Series, and their support goes much farther than that, as they've hosted numerous fundraisers in their establishment with the goal of raising funds to donate a sim rig to a deserving veteran or first responder. And to all those tuning into this broadcast at Nasty's Restaurant and Bar tonight, first off, welcome. Hopefully you're going to enjoy the action that we have tonight. Hopefully you're enjoying the nice food as well. Ready to get things back up and rolling from this race. Only 5 coming to 6 laps on the board of the 60-lap race. It's still our pole man, J.J. Moore, going to be leading them to green. However, he may have a challenge from Whittington on the outside. Gotta say, fantastic and convincing restart from J.J. Moore. He's going to be leading them comfortably, heading down into turn number 1. Look at some drivers fanning out, though, heading through into turn number 1. As an IndyCar guy, I'm usually shocked seeing some drivers go too wide around this racetrack, but in these next gen cars, you can get it done, and on these restarts, you really want to make hay while the sun is shining. Looking at the field coming out of turn number 2 onto the back straightaway, they're going to make it through the first 2 corners cleanly on this restart.
So drivers are starting to find themselves getting situated after turns 1 and 2. As we come down into turn 3, a long turn 3, very flat. Oh! Spoke too soon once again, and we got a big wreck. 07, the 27 involved. Looks like the number 3 involved as well. Patrick Drabeck involved.
Yeah, Drabeck involved, Mike Kostek involved as well. There's Jacob Ellingson in the Chevrolet. You can see that car is all sorts of out of whack as a result of that major crash. Heading through turn number 3, looks like Sam McKillen may have been involved in that incident as well. Another Chevy getting called out in this incident, but that was a big incident with some big playoff complications as well, putting this field back under yellow. Gonna take a look at a replay to see what exactly may have happened. You can see the smoke already up in the air. I think it was contact involving the 07 for sure. There you can see the 27 of Ellingson really having nowhere to run or hide in that incident. That's a big thing with this racetrack, Jeremy, with how narrow it is and how little margin for error you have. If you get caught up in someone else's mess, it can really mess up your day. And take a look, that's some pretty big contact with the 07 there of Patrick Drabeck, getting a big whack from Condorian Davis on the inside of him, heading off into the corner. And I gotta say, in all that, Mike Kostek, the driver of the number 3 car, has completely left the session. Gotta take a look at some more angles of this incident, Jeremy, but this has some huge complications on those playoffs.
Huge hits. Looks like Condorian Davis might have just went a little bit too low there, down in the rumble strips. Might have made him wash up into the Drabeck machine as we ride on board here with the Ellingson Lincoln Tech machine. nowheres to go, just an innocent bystander. This track, everything happens, it happens quick. You can't react because there's no downforce, and unfortunately these Lincoln Tech mechanics are getting an early workout.
That they certainly are. 2 yellows in the early stages of this race. Should be expected around a racetrack like this. Got some narrow corners, some difficult corners to try and race around in these NASCAR next-gen cars. But some big troubles hitting these drivers at the very beginning of the racing action here from this race. Gotta take a look at some more angles of this. There's Sam Milliken's perspective of that incident, the number 43 car. There's Kosek involved in that, and that's gonna sting for Kosek. He entered this race P7 in the point standings, 27 points up from the cut line. However, with this very early incident tonight, that is going to hurt him out a lot. The same can be said about the other car, the driver that he hit. Patrick Drabeck entered this race 11th on the playoff standings, only 13 points in front of the cut line. So it looks like Drabeck and Kostek going to get struck by falling anvil, and we haven't even hit lap 10.
Man, tons of drama early on, Ron. So many stories, so much stuff to follow. As we take a look at our leaderboard, though, J.J. Moore and Jesse Whittington are still our leaders up front. Strugen and Nikula, row 2 there. Angle and Collins, our 3rd row. McIlwain and Pendleton, our 4th row. And our 5th row, still showing Kadorian Davis and Jason Taylor.
Yeah, so even though this race has had pretty much 2 major resets with the incidents we've had, most of the front pack is pretty set in stone compared to how they were at the start. Gotta say, Ryan Pendleton with a fantastic start thus far. It says that he's currently up 7 positions from where he started in this race. So looking like a lot of drivers trying to make hay while the sun is shining and getting off to some flyer starts here at Indianapolis. It's one of the most storied racetracks in the world. I mentioned right before we grabbed the green about the fact that the first ever race around this racetrack, held all the way back in 1909, was a hot air balloon race, which is very odd to look back on. Of course, has been the host of the Indy 500 ever since 1911, with some small little breaks for both world wars in between that as well. It's one of the most storied racetracks in the world. One of only 3 racetracks from this season that I've actually visited in real life, the others being Dover and Iowa Speedway. Dover we saw a couple of weeks ago. Iowa we're going to be seeing a little bit later on throughout this season. Looks like the lights are out on the pace car. Going to be restarting this race with 10 laps on the board, Jeremy, completing what was possibly the most hectic first 10 laps we've seen from this season.
We'll have to see what that does for our drivers up front as well for fuel strategy. All these caution laps are definitely helping them save a little bit of fuel. Not sure if they can still get to the end, but they probably got themselves maybe 5 or 6 more laps of fuel with all these caution laps.
That's a very good point that you raised there, Jeremy. We're talking before the start of this race about how these drivers could pull off some fuel strategies, but with these early yellows, that is going to help them out a whole lot. Probably a whole lot of clutching and coasting going on at this point. I'm sure most of those race cars have not spent the entirety of this yellow flag period with the engines on, so that could play a big factor as to who is going to win this race. We haven't really seen a fuel mileage finish thus far this season. Hey, Indianapolis, we've seen it in the past. Paul Menard, when he won his only NASCAR Cup race all the way back in 2011, if my memory serves me correctly. He won that race because of fuel mileage over Jeff Gordon, so that was his only ever Cup win, and Paul Menard being the stone-faced man himself, barely even cracked a smile in victory lane. A victory lane that is his father wanted to go to many, many moons as a former IndyCar team owner back in the day, but that's a subject for another day. Nevertheless, ready to get things back up and rolling. This is going to be the second restart. Trying to see if we can get a green flag run going, or whether or not we're going to go back under yellow flag conditions in the not too distant future. The green flag back out, the drivers back up on their way, and for another time in this race, JJ Moore getting off to a flyer. Whittington now having to withstand some pressure from Sturgeon right behind. This is going to be an interesting fight between those two as they head off into turn number 1 and 2. It looks like Whittington going to clear him, but looking a little bit farther in the back. Some drivers trying to get some moves done. Look at Collins making his way up into 4, trying to get a move done on Jesse Nakula. Look at some drivers going side by side a little bit farther behind as they go on to the back straightaway, careening their way down into turn number 3. It's one of the hardest corners from this season because you're going into it like a bat out of hell. These drivers carrying about 175 miles an hour worth of speed heading into the corner, so those drivers are hauling the mail off into turn 3 and turn 1 around this racetrack, and it's so tricky. Just the mind games as well that these drivers go through trying to enter turn 3, just seeing that wall and that abrupt end to the race near you if you get it wrong. But those drivers making it around to complete 1 lap under green flag racing. Let's see how this lap goes, Jeremy.
Looks like drivers are getting up to about 190 miles an hour down the straightaways, down to about 150, 160 miles an hour through the turns. Absolutely incredible speeds. As we look throughout the field, you can see the number 23 machine of Ryan Pendleton trying to continue his march towards the front as he rides side by side there with the 45 of Zach Angles. We're 3 wide going into turn 3. Looks like the 41 on the inside of Jason Taylor taking 2 of those spots right away.
That is some ballsy stuff from all of the drivers involved. You don't want to do that throughout the race, though. Otherwise, you're going to end up in a world of trouble. Speaking of being in a world of trouble, this is going to be a disastrous series of events for the driver of the number 41 car. There you can see him heading down into turn 1. Looks like Cunningham may try and get a move on him done in the not-too-distant future. That was actually the 91 right behind the 45 of Angle that he's maybe going to get the move done in the not-too-distant future, but Angle feeling really racy, getting shuffled down a little bit. So that's going to cost him a little bit of time, but he's coming back to try and fight Cunningham. He's trying to get that move done. Looks like he has some assistance from Lucas Lyons in the 48 as well. Doing a little bit of bump drafting, heading down the back straightaway. Looks like Condorian Davis may try and join that pack as well. Still side by side, though, between Cunningham and Angle. Angle stuck on that outside line. Heading through 3 and 4, going to get hung out to dry at the end of the 12th lap of this race. Looks like Cunningham going to get that move done on him. Lyons looking to try and follow in suit.
All right, Ron, knock on wood, we've got a few laps under our belts here as we look back up towards the front with our battle for the lead. JJ Moore and Jesse Whittington, as you can see, a lap car going off to the side there, the Ellingson machine. Jacob Ellingson. Looks like he's just rejoining the pack. You see the Ryan Pendleton machine right there as well. But up front, it's still JJ Moore and Jesse Whittington. They're running where they started. Not too big of a gap, still about 0.3 of a second. We'll have to see how this pans out throughout the rest of the night.
Yeah, these two trying to break away from the rest of the field. Looking like they may not be able to do it at this early stage, though. It's about 0.6 of a second between Whittington and Sturgeon, with only 0.4 of a second behind Moore and Whittington. So it looks like they're trying to break away slowly but surely. Certainly the top 5 breaking away is Jesse Nakula running in 5th at this point in time, is about 1.5 seconds farther up the road to Taylor running in 6th at this early stage of this race. And Nakula actually losing a little bit of time to the back of Collins running 4th at this stage of the race. This will be a very good result for Jake D. Collins as well. He enters this race 10th in the playoff standings, 14 points above that cutoff line. This is a pretty well executed race from him thus far. Coming to the quarter mark of this race, he's already made up 5 spots in that number 81 Camry and may try and make up 1 in the not too distant future as well, as it's only 0.3 between himself and Sturgeon for 3rd.
As Collins continues his march, looking at the Jason Taylor machine as well, he's putting together some good laps with Pendleton following him through. These drivers are all in the march. You can see we got about 2 packs right now. Looks like the second pack is the biggest, but the farthest back. As we look up front, you got all this group right here. Looks like about 6 cars kind of evenly spread out, but they're leading the way.
And that they certainly are. At this point in time, JJ Moore has been dominant in this race. But again, We only have a quarter of the laps on the board at this point, so J.J. Moore certainly not out of the realm of possibilities that someone like Whittington, Sturgeon, or Collins, even Nakula for that matter, could try and snag the victory. Gotta say, Nakula has lost out on a whole lot of time as of late. It was about a second and a half between himself and Taylor not terribly long ago. Now it's a second and a half between himself and Collins. So Nakula losing out on a whole lot of time in the past few moments, running on board with Moore. That was a beautiful shot heading down the start-finish straightaway off it to turn number 1 here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. You can see the speed that these drivers are carrying through the corners, now really dipping below 145 miles an hour. But look, this may be an opportunity that Whittington is going to take. You can see that gap is slowly but surely closing. Will Whittington go for the lead? He's going to try and go for it down the inside off into turn number 3. Whittington looking to try and displace J.J. Moore, and he's going to do so successfully. The driver of the number 94 car displacing the driver of the number 54 car to become the first leader of this race outside of our pole sitter of Moore, rounding his way around turn number 4. Looks like he's going to lead. So Whittington bringing the fight to Moore, and now I think Moore is going to fall into the crutches of Sturgeon and Collins.
Looking at this pass right here, I think J.J. Moore gave Whittington the spot. I bet you J.J. Moore might be thinking tire saving right here. Try to have something a little bit here at the end of this run as we look at the 37 here. As Lanky, we'll have to see what happened under this. We'll see if he... There was an off track, but looks like all right so far. All right, we'll go back to live. It looks like nothing showed up there. The computer's lied to us.
Yeah, I will say it looked like he was taking a bit of an aggressive line with the other concrete patches on the inside of the turns on the oval. Ooh, looked like a little bit of wall contact. Who's that a little bit farther in the back of shots? Trying to figure out who that may have been.
Might have been Pendleton.
Possibly was Pendleton. Yeah, Pendleton having a little bit of a wall scrape coming out of the final corner. So looking to try and get another win from this season. Some more drivers going sideways. Gotta say at this point, Jeremy, especially with the restarts that we've had at the early stages of this race, I think these drivers are dealing with a little bit of difficulties. One driver dealing with a lot of difficulties. That's a big hit for Jacob Lenke. So that's what may have been the incident that we were trying to take a look at a couple of moments ago. That was a pretty significant whack for him, trying to figure out what in the world happened. Looks like he hit the wall coming through turn number 3. Then hits the inside wall as well coming out of the corner. But either way, Lenke running into some very big issues at this stage of the race.
As we look at these drivers coming off of turn 4 as well, they're on the top of the shot. It is extremely loose off of 4, and they might be having a crosswind right there. I'm not sure, but that might be leading to some of these drivers getting loose off the exit of 4. But the track temperature has begun to rise just a little bit, 1 degree at 112. You know, these tires, when they get hot, they get angry. So I think J.J. Moore might be conserving here a little bit. We'll have to see how it plays out for him.
Gotta say, Jesse Whittington is turning on the Hyperjets in that race car. Currently, that's the fastest lap of the race at this point in time, and he just did in the last lap that he has completed. So Jesse Whittington in that number 94 Chevrolet, he has kicked on the Hyperjets, trying to pull any sort of gap that he can. He's now extended that gap to himself and J.J. Moore to about 7 to 8 tenths of a second. So at this point in time, Moore slowly losing touch with Whittington. Sturgeon, meanwhile, he is slowly reeling him in. Gotta say, Jake D. Collins also losing touch. So really, that front 5 fight that we saw not terribly long ago that turned into a 4-car fight is now very much just a 3-car fight between Whittington, Moore, and Sturgeon. But Sturgeon at this point in time, he's already made up 1 spot in the early stages of this race. With that number 26 Chevrolet, he's already gotten a victory earlier on this season, looking to try and get one at the Yard of Bricks.
Whether it's real life or virtual, taking a win at the Yard of Bricks has got a lot of bragging rights, especially here at GoatLocker Racing. This is probably one of the best leagues I can see all around organization-wise. They do a lot of giving back to the real life, you know, between veterans, women and children. They always do great things, and this got a lot of bragging rights on the line tonight here at Indianapolis.
Yeah, drivers trying to claim that title as a winner at the Brickyard, and these drivers certainly have a good opportunity to do it. The ones at the front of the field, at least. Look at some drivers who've already had good seasons and have already had victories. Ryan Pendleton and Cody McIlwain currently running in 7th and 8th at this early stage of the race. Pendleton making his way up 8 positions in the early stages of this race. We're now a third of the way into this 60-lap long race, getting this race into a groove for sure, but some drivers still battling up and down the grid.
Looking at our most winningest driver there, that number 6 of Cody McIlwain, right there in the number 8 position right now, 2 spots down from when he started in 6th. We'll take an eye on him as we look back here in the 10th position. Also a driver that we see up towards the front as well is the number 48 of Lucas Lyons, right now in 10th place, 9 spots up from when he started.
Yeah, Lyons is a brutally quick driver in this series. Kicked the season off with a victory at Talladega and was in contention for the win at Atlanta 1 week ago. However, it didn't really materialize for him when everything was said and done. Gotta say, saw some very hard battling a couple of moments ago involving Zach Engel and Condorian Davis. I think they made contact coming out of the first corner, so some drivers still battling hard. I think it actually may have been Condorian Davis and Blake Edel. So the driver the number 50 and the driver the number 18 trading paint coming out of the corner. Gonna be riding on board with Condorian Davis, heading his way through 3 and 4 at this point. Still running in 12th at this point in time, down 4 spots from where he started in this race. Looks like he may lose out on another one, though. Not a whole lot of speed mid-rotation through the corner. Looks like Edel, though, had a bad exit going on to the start-finish straightaway, but he's still going to have that drift and maybe going to try and go for a move off into turn number 1. Not close enough. Condorian Davis going to lick the stamp and send it into the corner, trying to maintain that position at this point in time. However, with Blake Edel still in tow and Charles Stevens Jr. as well, a little bit further in the back of shot as well. I feel like it's a matter of when, not if, that Condorian Davis falls down a little bit more, Jeremy.
Yes, I believe he had contact there with Patrick Drabeck. I believe that potentially that caused one of those accidents. Might have some damage. I'm not sure if he pitted to repair it. So he might have some right front damage potentially from that wreck.
Certainly won't rule it out at all around a racetrack like this where you got very fast straightaways for sure. I mean, most straightaways are fast, but especially at this racetrack, these drivers are hauling the mail off into the corners, carrying about 190 miles an hour of speed, but then hang through the corners as well. With how sharp and how little banking you have, you need as much aero help as you can get. So a little bit of aero damage can hurt your race big time. Speaking of big time, Ryan Pendleton had some big time moments heading off through 1 and 2 a couple of moments ago. Nearly lost out on that P7 spot to Cody McIlwain, who are following right now in the number 6 car, riding on board now with Pendleton. The driver of the number 23 car made his way up 8 spots thus far. However, he may lose out on one of those spots in the not too distant future. He was maybe carrying a little bit too much speed off into turn number 1, possibly trying to cover off some sort of move that McIlwain was thinking on trying to make off into turn 1, but Pendleton at this point, the next car farther up the road, not terribly farther up the road, however, he would like a little bit more draft. McIlwain, on the other hand, he has a big hole in the air being punched right in front of him, so that car is carrying a whole lot of speed off at the end of these straightaways.
And all these drivers creating a lot of speed, but watching the handling starting to deteriorate on some of these vehicles. I got a big smile on my face right now because I'm not one of these drivers that's coming off a turn 4 right now, because they have got their hands full, and whoever can handle turn 4 the rest of the evening is going to have themselves a good night, because they are all right on the edge tonight here.
Yeah, drivers getting a little bit too flirtatious with that outside barrier.
Pit.
Whittington coming down pit lane. Was that by choice, though? I see a whole lot of smoke. So not sure if that was a smart call from Whittington. Has he picked up a black flag for a pit lane speeding penalty? Trying to look through. Yes, he has. Whittington with a black flag. Oh, this is going to sting.
I heard a lot of swerving and derving coming off of turn 4, so I'm not sure if this was meant to be or if he just went in a little bit too hard, but as we saw there, and you can see Jesse Whittington a little too fast on pit road. Yep, he got loose. Like I just said, turn 4, an absolute disaster today. These drivers, like I said, whoever can survive turn 4, right here we go. Off of turn 4, the leader got loose.
Oh, you can see him pawing at the wheel, trying to keep that car going, but Whittington with a tragic mistake. That's going to pretty much entirely take him out of contention. He has a big penalty to serve, and he is going to go a lap down, I believe, as well. A heartbreaker for him. J.J. Moore, who are following right now in the number 54 car. He was leading this race from the pole. He lost out on it with that move that Whittington pulled off. However, Whittington with that costly mistake coming out of the final corner around this racetrack. I saw the smoke in the air. I did not have a good feeling about. As an IndyCar fan, I've seen many incidents in the past in which a driver has gone down pit lane not because they wanted to, but because gravity just wanted to take them down off the banking and onto pit road. Just the same thing that I've seen so many times go down in IndyCar races in the past. Looks like it's going to catch out Whittington here from the lead of the race, and even the driver who's now picked up the lead as a result of that mistake, that being more mega sideways. Looking at the smoke getting picked up in the air, big lockups from both of the drivers that we've just seen come down pit lane.
Taylor with a black
Pendleton
flag.
following Mick Ilwain, and have they picked up another black flag?
Looks like
That was Jason S. Taylor coming down the pits. Yes, he has picked up a black flag.
Doug Allingson, I think, just picked up a meatball flag. Not sure where he was. But, yep, as you can see right there, the Allingson machine's slow down the backstretch. Not sure what happened to him. There's drama all over the track. Looks like these drivers are now in their pit window, so they're all trying to make it to the pits and trying to make it clean. It's very tricky right now. We'll have to see if we can get a replay there of Doug Allingson.
Ooh.
Okay, it looked
can
like he
see
was
that.
just along for the ride right there, but some type of damage puts him out.
Yeah, you can see that big detour for him coming out of turn number 3. That short shoot has cost many drivers chances at victory in
Pendleton
real
with a
life and
black
also in the
flag.
sim as well. Another black flag being given to another racer, this one being Pendleton. So Pendleton, the third driver in this race thus far to pick up a black flag. Jason S. Taylor, part of that club as well, which also includes Jesse Whittington, who in that number 94 car is well farther down in the pack at this point in time. Currently running one lap down all the way down in 22nd. A heartbreaker for the driver who was in the lead of this race. At this point in time, though, with coming up to 30 laps on the board, coming up to the halfway mark here from round number 8 of the GoatLocker Racing Wednesday Night Cruisin Classics Next Gen Series, the pit stops are starting, and these drivers, I think, starting to take it a little bit more careful. Fans of IndyCar and fans of the Indy 500 will remember a couple of years ago where Scott Dixon was on track to win that race, win the Indy 500 his second time winning the Indy 500, his first time since all the way back in 2008. However, a pit lane speeding penalty ended up biting him on the butt, and fans of NASCAR will remember what happened to Kyle Larson when he tried to do the double earlier on this year, picked up a pit lane speeding penalty, and took him out. Well, it's going to be a surefire top 15 result, but even in these NASCAR next-gen cars, that pit lane speed limit going to catch a lot of drivers on the hind end, and I'm just curious whether or not J.J. Moore going to join that club as he's come down pit lane right now, looking to try and see. It's a big lockup for him. Don't tell me he picked up a black flag. Looking through, got to be extra careful. Looks like he got away with one there, but J.J. Moore, even the race leader, taking a little bit easy, having big puff of smoke come up.
I'll say this, Ron, when I had stopped into this session earlier, I was watching practice, and I saw quite a few drivers going down pit road making mock pit road stops, and I think we're seeing who practiced and who didn't.
Yeah, practice can certainly make perfect when it comes to something that important. A little bit of an overshoot from J.J. Moore, hopefully not going to affect him too much. Had a pretty significant lead, it must be said, when he decided to come down pit lane. However, we'll see if that lead goes down. Sturgeon would be the one to capitalize. You can see him out there on the racetrack, running his way around turn number 4 on the 31st lap of this race. He's going to make that decision to come down pit lane as well. You can see 130 miles an hour when we decide to ride on board with him. That looked a little bit quick from Logan Sturgeon. He's picked up a black flag. Sturgeon with another driver picking up a pit lane speed penalty. I gotta say, if these drivers are picking up these penalties like it's going out of style, oh, it's such a shame. Jeremy just brought up the fantastic point about drivers practicing their pit entry before the qualifying session earlier on, and we just saw another top contender in this race get bit by that bullet.
And it looks like the tires are sliding, and that's what's catching these drivers speeding on the pits as they're sliding their tires when they're coming down pit road. Those hot tires don't really have any grip once you get these things nice and flat. Those big brakes, they're ready to stop the car, but the tires aren't.
In the past, these new NASCAR next-gen cars have been described as driving like a GT3 race car. The main difference is that a GT3 car has anti-lock brakes, and NASCAR next-gen car certainly does not. Riding on board with Daniel Cunningham, the net leader of this race, now yielding that to Lucas Lyons. But Cunningham coming down pit lane, very cautious, it must be said, on that pit entry, looking to try and not pick up any sort of pit lane speeding penalty. The same fate as has befallen many drivers thus far in this race. That has shuffled it up a whole lot. Lucas Lyons now in the lead of this race. Blake Edel in second. Sam McEllen running in third at this point in time, having to go back. Now, Logan Sturgeon at the moment is in seventh. However, he still has a penalty to serve. JJ Moore, the leader, the dominant leader in this race thus far. He's running down in 11th at this point in time. So we're still in the midst of these pit stops and going to be running on board with Lucas Lyons in the not too distant future, my apologies there, folks, to see what may happen to Lyons. If it were me, I would keep it careful, but again, there's a very good reason why I'm in the commentary booth and not behind the wheel, because these drivers are going to try and extract any sort of performance out of their race cars as they possibly can, but Lyons staying out for yet another lap, maybe putting that fuel saving under yellow to fantastic effect.
So as we take a look at our leader at the time, first one to pit there would be JJ Moore. He's got himself back up to sixth with the number 6 of Cody McElwain on his tail. I believe when we get through this cycle, I believe these two drivers should cycle to the front. We still got 27 laps to go. Still got different strategies out here, and we got all those penalties served. Man, the field has been shaken up.
That it certainly has. This race has been turned on its head. We're expecting the pit stops to play a huge role in how this race was going to shake out, and hey, we have seen that get put on full display thus far. Staying out for yet another lap is going to be Lucas Lyons, so an interesting call for him to continue out there on the racetrack. I'm looking through. Looks like that car is still clean on the front end. Thought I saw a little bit of damage there at first, but no, looks like the front end of that race car. Ooh, maybe a little bit of side damage now as he makes contact with the outside safer barrier coming out of turn number 1. Lyons still pushing that car to the absolute limit of adhesion. You also got Blake Edel right behind in second. Those two cars covered by about a second. I'm curious as to whether or not they're going to make a joint run down into the pits in just a couple of moments' time. 35 laps on the board, coming to 36 of this 60-lap race in the midst of the longest green flag stint that we have seen by a big margin here from the 8th round of this championship. But following our leader of Lyons, you can see him sideways drifting that car through the corner, but he's still going to stay out yet another lap. Lyons doing an interesting call here. I'm curious, has he come down pit lane thus far in this race? I don't believe he has. He has not. Taking a look at our live timing screen. So the front two have yet to come down pit lane at this point in this race. Some of the drivers a little bit farther behind, like the likes of McKillen, Tyler Justice, and Joe Hobbs, I believe, who were one of the first drivers to make that run to come down pit lane. But Lyons and Edel being the last to make that decision. We'll have to wait and see if it's going to help them out having this late call to come into the pits. I'm curious if it is actually helping them or hindering them, Jeremy.
Well, as we continue to, man, look at that. I love this bump draft and going into these turns. You can really get those drivers in the front real nervous, as I believe that's the 43 getting a push into the turn. But all these different strategies, like I said, like we've been mentioning, the driver's been able to save fuel with those cautions. Really stretching the limits here. Maybe hoping for a caution because maybe he doesn't want to pit. But definitely going to have to pit at some point because fuel will not make it to the end. Yeah,
he will have to make that run at... We'll have to make that run at some point in this race to come down pit lane. Got to do it at some point, though. Not only do you have to do it for rules' sake, you have to do it just to be able to make it to the checkered flag in this series. And of course, to finish first you have to finish. So even if you want to try and stretch your legs, you got to come in at some point. Lions and Edel still staying out, though. They're actually closing up, it must be said. It was about a second between the two of them not terribly long ago. Now down to about 6/10. And McGillen a little bit further back in third as well has closed up that gap too. So I'm curious as to whether or not these drivers are beginning to struggle a lot for grip, mainly Lyons, who continues to lose time. He's lost about 0.2 of a second in the small little yap session that I've had over the past 15 seconds. So Lyons continuing to lose out on some time, and you can see that car sideways and way farther out into turn number 1 than he probably had in mind. I think Lucas Lyons, his tires are probably cooked and worn down to the canvas. We mentioned earlier on in this broadcast, Jeremy, about the temperamental conditions that we have at this point. Looking at the weather radar, though, 113 degrees is the track temperature, so I'm curious what Lucas Lyons' race car is even feeling like at this point.
Those tires are screaming, get me off. I want some cool air. As he continues to just try to stay out front, he's given all this car has got. I can see his hands inside that cockpit, just left, right, giving all he's got to stay out front. Like you mentioned, it looks like maybe a little bit of nose damage. I'm not sure either. I don't know if it's the paint scheme that makes it look like that, but we'll keep an eye on that. These drivers, all different strategies. This has been one heck of a race since we got those couple incidents at the beginning, and we've had this great green flag run here. Everything figured out. Looks like fresh tires right now are 1.5 seconds faster. Here, if you look at the bottom of the screen right now, as Lucas Lyons has got looks like a 24-second lead. So I don't think Lucas Lyons could make it to the end, but if he could, he might be able to stay out in front of him.
Yeah, we're going to be getting back to Lucas Lyons. That number 48 car has been bleeding time like it's going out of style. And even Milliken a little bit farther in the back, he's been closing up that gap too. So the gap between Edel and McGillen has gone down a whole lot in the past few laps. It was about 5 seconds not terribly long ago. Now it's under 4. Edel, I think, just had a moment. There was a gap between himself and Lyons has ballooned to about 1.9 seconds as we're taking a look at a driver coming down pit lane. That is Hobbs, and you can see him very cautious on that pit entry, dipping down to even 35 miles an hour. Rather be safe than sorry in this race. I'm curious, going back to that issue of Lyons and Edel and their ill-handling race cars, I think it's mainly down to a few things as causing that. Tires certainly playing a big factor. Fuel could be as well, having a very light race car. These race cars are so light, in fact, folks, and I kid you not, the weight in my gaming PC mouse fell out as I was talking not terribly long ago. So as I try and get this sorted out, looking like some more drivers coming down pit lane. Not sure who that was coming into the pits. Possibly Drabick in the 07 car. So the driver who we saw get involved in an incident earlier on in the race, still out there on the racetrack at the moment, albeit well farther back in the field. Looking at a fight, though, outside of the top 10, following Angle and Stevens in that number 84 car, I believe, in the midst of a sandwich right now. Got a whole lot of cars running around him at this point, and for yet another lap, Lucas Lyons going to stay out as Moore getting a move on McIlwain to slip his way up into 5th and now pretty much be the net lead in this race. So JJ Moore putting those fresh tires to fantastic effect at this stage of the race. We got 20 laps to go, and at this point in time, even with the fuel, it's got to be a matter of time that Lyons has now made that run to come down pit lane. Got to take a look at this replay of the move that JJ Moore pulled off in the number 6 not terribly long ago. But right as I was mentioning that even with the fuel saving that we saw earlier on, with 20 laps to go, these drivers were probably running on fumes. But Lyons in the number 48 now finally making that run to come down pit lane to put some fresh tires on that machine.
As we look at Blake Edel, I believe, is a leader right now. Sam Mickelin there in second. These drivers have made their way to the front. under strategy. We got 19 laps to go. Everybody's watching the J.J. Moore, Cody McIlwain battle right now. Tyler Justice hanging out in third. Those drivers that are staying on these older tires are just praying for a caution. Not sure how much time they're going to be able to make up with the fresh tires, but I do know they need to take a lot less fuel, so we'll have to see if that plays an advantage to them at some point.
I'm not even sure if a restart for them on old tires would help out at all, just based off how slow we saw those drivers who are still out there on the old tires, how badly they were managing all of that, just sliding through just about every single corner around this racetrack. It's tough to try and wheel these things around at a racetrack like this with tires that are essentially worn down to the canvas. Currently riding on board with J.J. Moore, the number 54, taking a fantastic onboard shot of him right now. And you can see in terms of pace, he and McIlwain pretty evenly matched. He and Justice, on the other hand, it's been fairly cut and dry between those two. Moore slowly reeling in those front runners as Edel coming down pit lane for the lead of this race, the driver number 18. One of the other cars, Lucas Lyons, was the other one. He had to come into the pits, but Edel had to do it at some point, and he does it with 17 laps left in this 60-lap race. That's going to give the lead of the race to Milliken. But at this point in time, J.J. Moore slowly but surely going to reel in that front two.
These were a couple of drivers up front that did pit earlier on, maybe topped off on fuel to go a little bit longer. I still don't think they can make it to the end, especially with the J.J. Moore coming in hot too, obviously. Only 14 seconds back, but catching up very quickly. Tyler Justice just hanging out here. They're both pretty much just praying for a yellow. It looks like Milliken's going to make the left-hand turn and come down pit road nice and easy. That will turn the lead over to Tyler Justice, who continues to wait for a potential yellow flag situation. But looks like so far everybody's going to come down pit road. Not going to get the lucky break they needed. It looks like the battle between Moore and McIlwain still under battle. I believe the Moore machine does have better tires, but the 6 machine right there in his tracks.
And you can see him right now, nose to tail, heading through turn number 1 and 2. This has been a pretty good drive for both of these drivers. The real question is, who is going to come out on top? This would be a good result for either of these drivers as well. McIlwain already has a couple victories on this season, 2 to be precise. Looking to try and grab the third, and it would be a fantastic way to do it as well. Running at one of the most famous racetracks in the world. Add more in that number 54 car. He already has a victory as well this season, so those two already locked into the playoffs. However, they won bragging rights, Jeremy. I mentioned this earlier on in the broadcast, and it really should ring true. Winning at the Brickyard gonna give you a whole lot of prestige and gonna give you a lot of momentum as well heading into the final 2 races of the regular season, even though these two are locked firmly inside of the playoffs with no real way that they would be bumped out of it. But these two still gonna try and battle tooth and nail for that victory. Ooh, and you can see lap traffic playing a role in this. Who is that? The lap car having a very close call. That may have been Goshen that just gave a big jump scare to J.J. Moore. Looks like it's not going to lose him out on a whole lot of time, though, as Goshen also giving a little bit of a hard time to McIlwain as well. So both of them getting caught out by the lap traffic ever so slightly. Tyler Justice still leading, though, going to stay out for yet another lap. And there you can see in terms of pace, pretty evenly matched between the two of them with a few exceptions here and there. That gap maintaining about the same, if not, it looks like Moore beginning to slowly but surely pull away, even though that gap is only about half a second.
Only half a second, and a lot can still happen. Looks like it was a 0.3 seconds of difference between those two drivers that lap. So it looks like J.J. Moore is getting more and putting these lap times down and starting to pull away from that number 6 machine. Still waiting on the number 33 machine of Tyler Justice to make the left-hand turn down to pit road. Surprised he's gone this far on fuel. That car has got to be running on fumes. There he is. Looks like he's turning left, coming on pit road, and then we'll hand the lead back over to J.J. Moore.
And so it is now a heads-up fight between the two of them. Justice very careful on that pit entry. Doesn't want to pick up a black flag like many of his competitors have thus far in this race. Thankfully for this man, though, the number 54, J.J. Moore, was not one of those drivers to pick up a black flag. Dealing with some blue flags, though. That's number 58 that he just had to lap. That was Doug Ellingson that he had to overtake heading off into turn number 1. Looks like both he and McIlwain going to deal with that lapped car heading off into the corner. 13 laps of racing action left here for round number 8 of the Wednesday night's Cruisin Classics Next Gen GoatLocker Racing Series. J.J. Moore looking to try and grab his second victory on the season. McIlwain, meanwhile, looking to try and defeat him and grab his third. Also, look at Jake D. Collins running in third at this point in this race. He's 4.6 seconds back of the leader of Moore, but if those two come to blows, Jake D. Collins would inherit a fantastic result. This would not only be good for his points, if he were to, by some way, shape, or form, grab the victory in this race, that would lock him into the playoffs, which would be a very mighty and incredibly impressive and important result for a driver who, entering this race, was 10th in the playoff window, 14 points, and 14 points alone over that playoff cutoff.
Jake Collins going to be cashing in, hopefully, here on some good points tonight. Like you said, it'd be nice to kind of lock himself in with like a win, but just being on the track and not getting involved in that the wrecks earlier on that collected a lot of drivers in that playoff bubble. Going into next week, the playoffs are going to be all shaken up. The playoff bubble was so close, and a lot of those drivers that were on that playoff bubble got involved earlier on this evening, not even 10 laps in. So we'll have to see how that plays out as we got 11 laps to go this time by.
Yeah, and looking at the drivers on either side of the cutoff line, Blake Edel, who was on the wrong side of it, is going to be running in 11th at this point in time, up 3 spots from where he started in this race. That'll be a pretty good result, not only considering the troubles that Patrick Drabick, who was only 2 spots in front of him, had entering this race. He was 13 points above the cut line, and would be about 15 points in front of Blake Edel. However, Drabick running into those difficulties throughout this race, that's certainly going to hurt him and help Edel. Another thing helping out Edel is the fact that Timothy Stubblefield, who's holding on to that final playoff position entering this race, he was in 12th, up 2 spots, up 2 points over Edel. He's currently running well farther back in 17th, make that 18th, as Logan Sturgeon going to get a move done on for him. Logan Sturgeon already locked into the playoffs with a victory earlier on in this season, and I'm curious, Jeremy, if Logan Sturgeon didn't pick up that drive-through penalty and that big penalty for speeding in the pits, how do you think Sturgeon would have done in this race?
Not only Sturgeon, but quite a few of these drivers, Whittington as well. A lot of these drivers that had penalties that were up towards the front. And that was one of the things when I was watching practice, I thought it was interesting to watch them practice that. But these drivers that made those practice runs knew exactly what they were looking at. As we got 10 laps to go, and boy, those drivers still got their hands full coming off of turn 4. It looks like Edel is coming back to pit road. Not sure if he's got some type of penalty or just coming back down pit road. Maybe forgot fuel. We'll have to check a look at this replay. Just looks like it comes on replay. Excuse me, just comes down pit road. Excuse me. Wow, got that all mixed up. Great replay, thank you. As we look at the Whittington machine there, trying to make his charge back up to front. I believe he got himself on to the lead lap, running now 13th. Was up in the front, leading the race. And unfortunately had that pit road speeding penalty. But as we look up front right now, J.J. Moore fell in front of that 6, but just barely by about a half a second.
I gotta say, Blake Edel, at least from my perspective, has been given a black flag, so I'm not sure if it was for that big lockup heading down into pit lane or what, but he joins George Jewell as 2 cars out there on the racetrack at this point that do have black flags next to their name. And another storyline to touch on is the fact that number 48 of Lucas Lyons has left the session, so I'm not sure what may have happened to him. The driver who's been a fantastic one to follow all throughout the season, running into some difficulties here at IMS. Looking at the front two, though, Moore and McIlwain, they're still covered by about a half a second. Heading into the final few laps of this race, 8 to go. They got some lap traffic in the form of Hobbs about a second farther up the road. The lap traffic encounters may be what decides this fight between Moore and McElwain. McElwain at this point, though, he hasn't had too much luck in terms of trying to get moved on Moore, and that gap has been slowly ticking up and it's been going back and forth. However, I don't really think that McElwain has made any major plays on Moore to close up that gap in the past 25-ish laps. So really, I think at this point in time, if you're Cody McElwain, the driver of the number 6 car, you may have to start hoping for a little bit of a miracle.
Looks like every time he gets about a half a second away from JJ Moore, looks like he loses a little bit of air off of his nose and kind of gets him tight off the exit, so loses a little bit of momentum as JJ Moore gets really tight off the exit with the lap car taking the air out the front of his car. As the lap car will file in as the leaders will come through. Nice and easy for these leaders as they continue their battle. As we look at the Condorian Davis machine there, the number 50 machine, running 8th, right where he started, just inside the top 10, battling there, I believe, with Charles Stevens in the 84, who's up 14 positions from where he started, running in the 14th position. Coming to 6 laps to go next time by. These drivers that are going to make these passes are going to get desperate. That might lead to a yellow flag.
We've seen some pretty late yellows decide these races in the past. Really happened just 1 week ago at Atlanta Motor Speedway. Some of these drivers, though, hoping that lightning isn't going to strike twice. One of those drivers certainly going to be JJ Moore, as he's now beginning to pull that gap to himself and McElwain. He's still pushing that car to the limit of control, though. 6 laps left to go, and that gap to himself and the number 6 now ballooning to about a second.
These drivers have got their hands full right now with 113-degree track temperature, 30-mile-an-hour wind here. Had all sorts of variables into this race, and I love to see it. Really makes these drivers have to work for their victories here at the Brickyard. Lots of sliding going on. We're coming to 5 laps to go. Does the number 6 machine have anything for JJ Moore?
Coming to 5 to go for Moore. 5 more laps for the 6 to try and get a move done on the 54. The real question is, though, does he have the pace not only to get the move done, but just to close up that gap as well? It's about 9/10 between these two race cars. There you can see in terms of lap times, it's been pretty back and forth. However, over the past few laps, Moore has started to pull out that gap slowly but surely. He's been whittling away at it. It hasn't been a massive gap that he's pulled in the span of 1 lap. Really, the biggest gap that he's pulled is a bad 0.3 of a second in 1 lap and 1 lap alone. But outside that, though, he's just been slowly whittling away at it and slowly building up that gap. It's now teetering around that 1 second barrier between Moore and McElwain. So at this point, though, I'm really curious as to whether or not the 6 will have any sort of way to try and combat this. Looking at a fight involving Sam Milliken in the number 43 car and Bobby Germain in the 42. Germain involved in that playoff bubble fight, but at this point in time, running 11th at this point. This would not be a bad result at all if you are Bobby Germain, considering the falling anvil that just struck Blake Edel not terribly long ago with that black flag. This is going to be a pretty good result if Germain can hold on. A playoff driver that's certainly going to be smelling like a rose the most is probably going to be Jake D. Collins, running effectively in no man's land with about 3.5 seconds between himself and Nakula, who we were just following a couple of moments ago. Collins putting on a very good drive at this point, holding on to a P3 spot, making his way up 6 positions between the start and the end of this race. Gonna have to settle for a podium, though, as it's about 6 seconds between himself and the front 2. Moore and McElwain still around that second gap now with 3 laps to go.
Just 3 laps to go from this eventful GoatLocker Wednesday night Cruisin Classics Next Gen Series. Been very eventful here, a lot going on. Wow, drivers with their hands full here with just 3 laps to go.
Could see the smoke coming up in the air from JJ Moore's race car. That was a pretty significant wall tap coming out of turn number 1. Despite the fact he's leading with 3 laps to go, he is still pushing that car to the limit. He knows that Cody McIlwain behind is a very fast racer. I mean, you got to be quick to have 2 victories thus far on this season, but the 6 applying the pressure to the 54. The real question is, will he have enough time to try and get a move done or even just close up that gap, which is now ballooning to about a second. Coming out of turn number 4, Moore going to be seeing 2 laps left to go here at Indianapolis, and it's still about a second gap. He's got some lap traffic, though, right in front of him. That's going to play a big factor in deciding how things are going to shake out for Moore. I think he may be catching up to them in the dying stages of this race. Gotta say, though, that gap is still growing between himself and McIlwain, now to north of 1.2 seconds. So I think McIlwain, despite the fact he was feeling very confident in his chances running in the dirty air around a racetrack like this with no banking to help you out, that is going to be a detriment, and he's probably cooked off his tires as a result of that. But Moore heading his way around turn number 3, that's a careen his way off it to turn number 4. He's hoping to see that white flag in the air, and unlike Parker Kligerman in the Xfinity Series race just a couple of weeks ago, he's hoping to grab that white flag and grab that white flag before the yellow. Still mega sideways coming out turn number 4. He's pushing that car to the absolute limit of control, but the white flag is in the air. He has taken a 1 more lap of racing action. Not going to go into green-white checker territory. If you are JJ Moore, you're not hoping to as well. However, he is still sawing at the wheel, getting so flirtatious with that outside surfer barrier coming out of turn number 1. That's like 3 laps in a row at this point that he's either hit the wall or has come incredibly close to it. Moore is still pushing that car to the absolute limit of control. The tire fall off has been a big factor in this race. Last time by at a 54.58, which is much slower than his best lap in this race. It really shows you how much these drivers are dealing with the handling woes in these NASCAR next-gen race cars, but in a race of battles, of smoke, of tears at the very beginning, and a whole lot of cautions and drama. Looks like it's going to be JJ Moore going on to the Yard of Bricks to win here at the Brickyard. JJ Moore, your winner over Cody McIlwain in P2, and you have to go a little bit farther back to find Jake D. Collins, the driver, the number 81. He's going to come out of this race at Indianapolis smelling like a rose. The driver, the number 81 car, entered this race 10th in the playoff standings. He's not going to lock his way in, but he is going to do himself a whole lot of favors. But the man who is going to be celebrating the most is going to be JJ Moore, who wins it here from the GoatLocker Racing Wednesday night Cruisin Classics series here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. It was 60 laps of hard-fought racing with a fantastic and lengthy green flag run to round it off. Gonna take a quick commercial break here, gonna have some interviews, run through the results, and wrap things up here from the 8th race of the season. Congratulations to our winner, JJ Moore. We'll be right back after these messages. Alrighty, everybody, welcome back here to tonight's coverage of the Wednesday night next-gen GoatLocker Racing Cruisin Classics series. JJ Moore victorious, not going to be a fan favorite, though, with a burnout on the Yard of Bricks as a racing historian. I'm currently searing my teeth and hissing like an irate cat, but he still put on a beautiful drive when everything is said and done to come out of this race with the victory. And, you know, we've seen, and we just saw a couple of moments ago, the wonderful wonderful stuff that is on display at Cruisin Classics. We've talked about them a lot throughout this season. We'll talk about them again because Cruisin Classics has been buying and selling cars for many years. The majority at first were your average daily drivers, but their passion has always been in muscle cars and hot rods. So in 1996, Cruisin Classics built a 56,000 square foot showroom located in Columbus, Ohio, that they still operate out of to this very day. All of their vehicles are hand-picked and selected to ensure that they fit their inventory. The facility is now arguably one of the best stock collections for sale in the entirety of the US, housing hundreds of unique automobiles all under one roof. We invite you to their facility. There's something for everybody when you come and take a visit. We would like to thank Cruisin Classics for being the primary sponsor of the Wednesday night Next Gen series and being with GLR from the very beginning. You know, talking about another fantastic partner that we have, that being Lincoln Tech. Had to talk about Lincoln Tech a little bit earlier on because of the yellows that we had. May have JJ Moore visit Lincoln Tech, considering a little bit of the scraping that he's done to the barrier during these burnouts to celebrate a well-earned victory. But Lincoln's mission is to provide superior education and training to their students for in-demand careers in a supportive, accessible learning environment, transforming students' lives and adding value to their communities. They're one of the largest automotive technology schools in the nation with 23 campuses nationwide. They're the title sponsor of the Fall Series and also a very large partner of GoatLocker Racing. We would like to thank Lincoln Tech, Nasty's Restaurant and Bar, Cruisin Classics, as well as all the other fantastic partners that we have here from the GoatLocker Racing Series. We've got some results to take a look at when everything is said and done here, Jeremy. It was a great day of racing action, and JJ Moore wins it when everything is said and done. Cody McIlwain going to finish right behind in second. Only a second between those two cars, especially with an incredibly long green flag run to bring this race to a close. Jake D. Collins, a driver number 81, having a brilliant drive. That's going to help him a whole lot in those playoff standings. The same can be said about Daniel D. Cunningham finishing right behind in fourth, and Jesse Nakula finishing in fifth. Zach Engel going to finish in sixth. Charles J. Stevens going to finish in seventh. Condorian Davis with a very up and down day. He's going to finish in eighth. James Kaufman in ninth. Sam Milliken finishes in P10. Tyler Justice, who we saw leading towards the end of this race on that interesting and far different pitch strategy, he ends up finishing this race in 11th. Bobby Germain finishes in 12th. Jesse Whittington, gotta feel bad for the guy. He was in a fantastic spot earlier on in this race. However, with an unforced error coming out of the final corner, he ends up finishing this race in P13. Jason S. Taylor going to finish in 14th. Ryan Pendleton didn't have a fantastic day for sure, but he's already locked into the playoffs of the driver, the number 23 car, not having to worry about it too much. Timothy Stubblefield right behind a P16, on the other hand, certainly did. He was right on that playoff bubble entering into this race, so we'll have to see how things are shaking out after the results being taken into consideration from tonight's action here at Indy. Logan Sturgeon, another driver who we saw get bit by the bullet in terms of pit lane speeding penalties, he finishes in 17th. Joe Hobbs going to finish right behind him, P18, and rounding out your top 20 is going to be James Goshen and Blake Edel.
A lot of these drivers behind them here had trouble early on. 21st, Timothy Williams. 22nd, Patrick Drabeck. 23rd, Doug Ellingson. 24th, George Jewell. Lucas Loynes, 25th. 26th, Jacob Blanke. 27th, Jacob Ellingson. Michael Koseks, 28th. Drivers that did not take times, Tanner Betha and Chris Sawyer.
That's going to round out our results from tonight's action at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Got some drivers waiting in the interview waiting area, and the first driver that we're going to have a chat with is going to be our P3 finisher, that being Jake D. Collins. And drag him into the commentary booth now and congratulate him on a podium result and a very good points day. He's now joining us in the commentary booth. And now, Jake, that looked like a pretty, I wouldn't say ordinary day in the office. Certainly had some challenges to face, but a pretty productive day here at Indy.
Yeah, it was a fun race. I mean, I didn't really know what to expect going in. I don't run here enough, and I was nervous, to be honest. I thought I was going to wreck. Turn 1 was super tight. Turn 4 was super loose, so I couldn't find a balance in between that, but managed to finish third somehow.
I mean, you're certainly not going to turn down a P3 result considering that playoff battle that you were in the midst of. heading into this race, not locked into it, but that P3 result and some of the difficulties that some of your other competitors ran into, certainly going to set yourself up well for the final two races of this regular season. So, what are your thoughts, just from your perspective, on that playoff fight?
It's gonna be fun. It's gonna come down to the wire, I think. I would like to lock myself in. I think I have the speed to go win a race. I just need to execute, but I definitely gained a few points. I should be higher up in the points and just got to keep my head down the next few weeks and try to get a good finish.
And speaking of heading down, we're going to be heading down to Gateway Worldwide Technologies Raceway to get the professional name out of the way. That's going to be the next race of the season in 1 week's time. So, how do you fancy your chances there?
Feel more confident than I did this week, to be honest. Flat track's not my favorite, but Gateway is one I've always kind of had figured out better than some other, like Phoenix. So I don't know. It's going to be an exciting race. Obviously, my teammate JJ, he apparently knows how to win at these flat tracks. So I'm hoping I can get some coaching from him and, I don't know, battle for a win and get locked in these playoffs.
Well, I'm sure that would lead you to be very comfortable for the final 2 weeks of this regular season, but you did yourself a whole lot of favors here at Indy with that P3 result. So well done on a pretty well executed drive here at Indy. And before we let you go and celebrate with your teammate, who I think will be joining us in just a couple of moments' time as well, is there anyone you want to give a thanks to or shout out?
Thanks to all the sponsors that make this happen, and then Maconi for the broadcast, and then just everyone that makes this league go around, all the competitors that I race against every week. It's been really fun. Obviously my teammates might not be the most liked, but I get by. So huge shout out to JJ, obviously, like I said earlier, helping me out, and then Condorian Davis, always a nice, well, always a good teammate.
Well, there you go, Jake. Well done on the P3 result there. And hey, you may not be liked, but if you get the results on track, that's all that matters when everything is said and done. But well done on the P3 result here in Indy, and excited to see you back out on the racetrack for the rest of the season, man. Thanks for joining us.
Yep, thank you guys.
And that right there was Jake D. Collins, a driver who finishes this race in third. And now, Jeremy, would you like to have a chat with our P2 finisher, Cody McIlwain?
Absolutely. We'll get Cody in here. As we got Cody, our P2 finisher, man, this seems to be becoming pretty common with us having you up here in the broadcast booth for these post-race interviews, man. Just a little bit short. Looks like you're just a second. JJ Moore had all sorts of things going on with his car. You were right there. What else did you need to get it done tonight?
Just some newer tires, I guess. I don't even know how I ended up in second, honestly. I pit out of like 7th or 8th, I'm not even sure. And I guess some guys got penalties, or maybe just
Oh
had
yeah, yep.
trouble in
Quite
the
a
pit
few
stop.
speeders. Yep.
Yeah, that's what I figured. And so I was shocked to even be where I was when JJ blended back. He was only right ahead of me, and I was not really prepared for that. So at that point, I was just trying to stay close to him because it was going to be so hard to pass here, dude. When you got right up on somebody, into 1 and 2, it was just wanted to go straight. And then out of 3 and 4, it was so loose, it was hard to create any kind of run. So, yeah, I don't know, man. I didn't have anything for him unless he made a mistake, and he did a great job. He had one little mishap down the front straightaway. I think he said he shifted down or something, and I got alongside of him, and I knew that was probably going to be my only shot. And, I drove it in way too deep, trying to make something happen there. But it was a good race. All the lap cars did great, kind of giving us room and getting over and getting out of the way and stuff. So shout out to those guys, and good racing up front. I know there wasn't a lot of passing going on, but good clean race for the most part.
That was definitely the name of the game, was clean air. Well, Cody, another good battle here with JJ Moore. I'm going to put you guys as my 2 championship favorites right now. What do you need here these last few weeks to maybe go for that championship?
Well, it's all just going to come down to the playoff races themselves. Just getting, having solid races. Don't need to do anything crazy. Just get through the playoffs and get to that last one, and then it'll just come. If you find yourself there, it's just gonna be preparing for it and being ready when that day comes, and just giving it my best, man. That's all I can do, and I'm sure he'll do the same. And if we both end up there, and we'll see what happens.
Well said. The momentum is in your favor, Cody. Who do you got to thank for getting you here tonight?
I just like to thank all our sponsors as always here at GoatLocker Racing: Lincoln Tech, Hidden Whip Brewery, Cruisin Classics, Nasty's Restaurant and Bar, Veterans for Life Foundation, Veterans for Life Racing, InVets, Jam Printing and Promotions, Maconi Setup Shop, V-Speed, NASA 360, Indiana Department of Veteran Affairs, Alexander PCs, Sim Motion, Next Level Racing, iRacing, Above the Yellow Line, and then just shout out to my teammates at GoatLocker Racing: Pat, Jamie, Jake, Alex, and Ron. And we appreciate y'all in the booth, man. Y'all do a great job.
Awesome. Good stuff, Cody. Thank you so much. And hopefully we'll catch you these next few weeks in the broadcast booth as well.
Yeah, man. Thank you. Y'all have a good night.
You as well, Cody. Thank you. All right, Ron. Looks like we got one more interview to do tonight. That's going to be our winner.
That we certainly do. It is JJ Moore, the driver, who walks away from this race at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway with the checkered flag. And now, JJ Moore, that looked like a pretty hard-fought show from you. Had to withstand a whole lot of challenges all throughout this race. But after starting from the pole, you end up victorious. However, the path to get there was certainly not easy. Talk us through it.
Yeah, it was fun. I know y'all know I qualified on pole. I don't know how I threw that lap together, to be honest. It was one of the better laps of the session, or of my entire career, I guess you could say. Go off into the race, 94 passes me early. And then I hate to see him go out like that. He spun off into pit road. It sucks. He probably would have had me too, but it kind of just a racing deal. I can't really do anything about it. And then after that, it was just a hard-fought battle with the six and making sure I didn't mess up on pit road and mess up on the track.
It may have been unfortunate for your competitors, but it's probably not too unfortunate for you as you walk away from this race tonight with your second victory on the season, carrying a whole lot of momentum into the final two races of the playoffs. What do you think about the next race of the season at Gateway and really just the rest of this regular season?
Well, I've ran Gateway a couple times. I guess like my teammate said, I'm kind of a notorious flat track king now. So I have pretty high hopes for Gateway. I've been like you said, a really consistent driver. I feel and just up there, and I've put in that standard on myself now to just run top 5, top 10 every week. So I'm hoping to have a good finish at Gateway and then wrap it up at Darlington. Head off into the playoffs and a dang high boat, high horse, and get her done.
Yeah, hit the ground running once the playoffs start in the not too distant future. Only 2 more races left to go in the regular season, but it was a pretty hard fought show for you today. And overall, pretty solid, gotta say. A pole and a win. Certainly not going to turn our heads at that at all. Gotta say, one question just from a personal side of things as a very big IndyCar historian here. I'm going to ask about those burnouts at the end and burning it down on the yard of bricks as well. You want to explain yourself?
Yeah, I was excited. My bad. I should have known. As soon as I spun across them, I said, "Well, I'm gonna get flamed for it." So that's on me. I'll learn next time.
It's all good, man. Don't worry. With how good of a sim racer I am, usually the only burnouts that I do is whenever I blow my motors up, but that's neither here nor there. But JJ Moore, congratulations on the win here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. And before we let you go and celebrate this win, is there anyone you want to give a thanks to or shout out?
I want to shout out and thank all the sponsors, all the guys that put this stuff on week in, week out. There's a bunch of them, and they all help with everything this does. All the league admins. They do so much behind the scenes getting this all ready. Thank y'all for the broadcast. It's nice being not necessarily famous, but it's nice having my face put on Twitch. And then thank all the competitors for keeping clean. That was one of the better races I've ran. Thank my teammates Jake and Ken, who had a good run. Happy to see good team success, and hope we can get the same thing done soon at Gateway.
Yeah, fingers crossed that's going to be a good end of the regular season for you. You've been fast all season long and heading to another flat track in 1 week's time, the night before Halloween. I'm sure you're going to give some of the competitors a spook at there on the racetrack. But JJ, well done on the victory here at Indy. Congratulations on the win at the Brickyard. I'm excited to see you back out on the racetrack, wherever it is in the not too distant future, man. Thanks for joining us.
Yes, sir. Thank y'all.
And that right there was JJ Moore, the driver who ends up winning when everything is said and done here at Indianapolis. But Jeremy, that was a fantastic night of racing action. We were kind of expecting a little bit of a broken up race considering the challenges that these drivers tend to face around a racetrack like this. But overall, the race went fairly smooth without a hitch. Outside of a few incidents towards the very beginning, it was very smooth, had a fantastic green flag run, and a really intriguing race as well. Final thoughts on this race here at IMS.
Well, this is another great GoatLocker Racing League race. These drivers always put on a really good show. And I mean, coming out here with 28 cars to put them out on this track, even though it is 2.5 miles and very wide, it can be very difficult. Obviously, this track had a lot of changes tonight. 30 mile an hour per winds, hot track. These drivers had their hands full, and it was a great night. I'm excited for next week at Gateway, another flat track. These drivers will put on another good show. And one more thing before I get off of here, I just want to say good luck to you, Ron, on your next adventure. I know this is our last night here for GoatLocker, us two working together. But it's been a pleasure for this first half, and hope to work with you again soon.
Yeah, it has been a pleasure as well. I was just about to mention that. Unfortunately, this is going to be my last broadcast here from this season. It has been a fantastic first 7 rounds of the season. Skipped out on 1 because my voice was just completely shot that certain day, and I think I was sleeping for about 14 hours a night, considering how bad my cold was. But still, the first half of the season has been absolutely fantastic, and I'll tell you what, this commentary booth going to be in pretty good hands. Dylan Coyle, who you can usually hear on the GoatLocker Racing Truck Series on Sundays here on Maconi Entertainment, is going to be bringing y'all home throughout the final 2 races of the regular season and the fantastic slot of races that we have to look forward to for the playoffs until the championship deciding race at Las Vegas in December. Got an awesome series of tracks to look forward to. Gateway, Darlington, Richmond, Charlotte, Iowa, Nashville, and Las Vegas to bring this season to a close. Got some fantastic competition, some awesome sponsors as well, and we've got a pretty awesome broadcast booth here. I'm just a nose cone of the Rocket, Jeremy. It's been an honor being part of the commentary booth. Marty, you've been doing a fantastic job working on the cameras in the virtual production hauler. I'm sure you guys are going to have a whole lot of fun throughout the rest of this season. Wish I could be a part of it, but sadly the world works in very odd ways. But I think for one final time from my end on this series here on Maconi Entertainment, from the fantastic night of racing action that we just had here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, that will just about do it. So for myself, Ron Mullins, Jeremy Briggs joining me in the commentary booth, and Marty Zakala working all the cameras, doing a brilliant job working on the cameras in the virtual production hauler, I say thank you all so very much for watching this broadcast on Maconi Entertainment, and we hope to see you all wherever it is in the not too distant future.
Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing